Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. My name is Matty Carling. You've just tuned into the Pause Screen, your one-stop shop for all of your Division content needs. Today on the Pause Screen, we're discussing the overall beta, open, and private impressions of the Division 2, and we're going to ask ourselves if it is worth the price of admission to get activated for a second tour of duty. We'll also tell you how to start playing this game Tuesday the 12th instead of the 15th like everyone else. This is the Pause Screen. Let's pause. Alright, agents, the only thing standing between us and the sweet Division 2 action is a weekend and a Monday. Some of you will probably think it's the longest 3 days ever, but it will pass. Don't worry, we'll be playing the Division before you know it. As promised, if you want to play this and other early content of this game, all you gotta do is purchase the Gold Edition or a higher edition above that. It's that easy. Really it is. You just need that Season Pass, and the Season Pass is only available in the Gold or higher editions. It most likely is too late to purchase a physical copy, but well, I'll let you try and figure that one out. You never know. It doesn't hurt to try. You can head on down to GameStop and see what you can do. I doubt you'll get it if you order it right now online from the Ubisoft store. So hit up the GameStop, your local GameStop. Support them because they're going out of business. Now, I tried to avoid playing too much of the Division because I wanted it to feel fresh when I start up on Tuesday, and I did not want to burn out on it, and I did not want to experience it with anybody else because I want it to be fresh on Tuesday when I get into it. I played it mostly solo so I could get a good feel of how hard it was going to be. The enemies felt very dynamic at times, and as though they were almost operating on a sense that the goal was to kill me and not to just shoot at me and throw things at me. When you compare this to an actual RPG, and you keep in mind that this is an actual RPG, it's not a looter shooter as you'll hear people say, you'll start to feel a sense of why enemies are fairly accurate and they always know where you are once they spot you. These type of encounters I compare to a random encounter in like a JRPG in the wild. I had to adjust my expectations of what the Division 2 is and really come at it from that angle of that this wasn't a Destiny type shooter or Call of Duty, but the fact that this was an RPG more of the Final Fantasy or whatever. Insert your favorite RPG here. So based on that fact, it makes more sense as to how they are that accurate and why it takes 3 headshots to down them without appearing to take any harmful effect other than just staggering them. I mean, if you shoot somebody in the head in real life, they're gonna go down. In this game, it takes 3 or 4 shots. So that's where the bullet sponge kind of triggers in people's mind, is that they're not thinking of this in an RPG. If they had a sword in their hand, it would be a whole different thing, because in RPGs, when you're slashing at people with a sword, you're not cutting off their hands, you're taking damage. So that's kind of where we're coming from this. It's a gun instead of a sword in that sense. So the world feels very empty compared to New York, but also very much alive in some way. While walking around during the beginning portions of the game, you'll find more enemies kind of standing around, and as you progress through the game, you'll find more enemies being replaced by roaming teams of resistance fighters as you kind of build those up and take over control points. The world of Washington, D.C. circa 2017 feels very much alive, and yet it doesn't feel as alive as New York circa 2016, 2017. It just doesn't have that ambience of the original Division, where you got a lot, you hear people in the background yelling, you hear kind of the wind. It's kind of strange how to put it, but hopefully they add back in this, because the sense of ambiance wise, there's just something missing from Washington DC during this. Birds chirping, I'm sure that's all in there, but it's just there's something different about this that differentiates itself from the Division 1. Now the game makes up for that with the gun sounds, walking around, being able to hear kind of the enemies and what they're doing. Audio wise, I can see why they have so many issues. There's a ton of audio in this game, and the game literally has a ton of sounds going on at one time when you're in fights and stuff like that, but when you're walking around, like, your heavy footprints are pretty much the only thing you're hearing. And so I don't know if that's just my impression of it, and I wasn't really looking out into that area, but that's just how I feel. The environments look fantastic, but the issue here is that they look too good. I know, 7 months of growth or even a year of growth doesn't look like this. It looks like, you're not growing a forest, and a forest isn't springing up in a lot of these areas to take over what it is. I mean, maybe it is, but I've seen places where a year is, especially in an urban environment like Washington, D.C., it's not going to happen that fast. You're not going to have vines hanging around and stuff like that. It feels very much like many of them have been saturated by dense vines and overgrowth, and I just don't know if the timeline supports that. I mean, this is supposed to be, 7 months? However, if you're like me, you'll quickly get past that because you'll find that it really doesn't matter. It just enhances the game environment. I would think more so that there would be people keeping up things, cutting the vines, keeping some things in the White House in repair. I actually played the FBI Bureau mission where you actually have to go into FBI headquarters. That was pretty cool. Now, if you're a veteran of the Division, movement hasn't changed. Everything feels very similar. It's still pretty much what you expect, and much of the way everything works is still in the game. In fact, I've seen a lot of people who say it's a huge improvement when I found that the game feels very much like a direct sequel, which I know it sounds crazy because it is a direct sequel, but they didn't do anything in thinking that they were going to advance something very similar. If you played the original Mass Effect and then you played Mass Effect 2, it's not that type of change. It's literally like if they just created an expansion for a story and tacked that onto the end of the first Division. That's kind of how this feels. So that's really where I'm coming from. I personally enjoy being in a familiar zone and having, improvements where improvements need to be made. And I watched a lot of reviews of this just to kind of get an idea as to what people were saying. And I came across Joe Vargas's review, and he said the same thing. But honestly, who cares what that schmuck thinks? When was the last time that guy picked up the Division 1? Division 1 launch? Get the fuck out of here. You're reviewing games and you're not actually playing. You never were part of the Division community. So saying that they're similar without having a clue what you're talking about, you have no idea what you're talking about. What, did you pick up the Division the day before and then pick up the Division 2 private beta and we're like, hey, I better review this. They feel the same game. I don't know. It's stupid that you're giving this to people like this to review when they haven't picked up the first game. They don't know what they're talking about, and they're saying that it's the same and it's not a huge improvement. Now, the key difference between Division 1 and Division 2 it's really in the skill. This is where I've heard the most complaints, and this is where the game gets tough because instead of people are used to that insta-heal from Division 1, and you don't get that. You get a drone that can heal you if you want to take that, but you actually need to plan things out a bit more. You can't just run out. It's really, they emphasize the cover mechanic. Skills are not the main focus like in the Division 1. I feel like the best way to sum it up is the skills in the Division 1 felt like they were your winter skills, like a heavy jacket was needed to keep warm out there. And the Division 2 are kind of summer skills. They're very light. They're not, you don't need as much because it's warm outside. That's really the best I got for you. The skills feel like they're supportive more than just a main weapon in your arsenal. I know a lot of people really use those seeker mines and other things as weapons, and these are more of a support role where you're just kind of going out and you're using them where you can, and you're not really going out there and using them as the main weapon like the little launcher bomb and stuff like that. So that's one of the main differences. Now, the one thing that I did want to point out is that this felt very much at home, and that was unsettling to me. The environments, while they did feel very fantastic and very Washington, D.C., they felt very similar and almost too similar to New York, where I would actually notice that some of the landmarks from the Division 1 actually made it into Division 2. A lot of the same textures, some retextures, but using the same kind of texture environment. I don't know really how to explain that, but even the police cars feel like they were the New York cars, but they just kind of took off the New York part and put on Washington, D.C. part. But I mean, it's very much my perception. I know that I've said it before, but it's true. I mean, if the snow melted in Washington, the only thing that would be missing from this game is the high rise. And I mean, it's possible that the JTF in Washington, D.C. and the JTF in New York are one and the same. So that, they make a lot of same ropes, same equipment. It's just very much the same. So the one thing I will say about the changes in skills, that it's very welcome, and I'll tell you why. These agents are from different areas, so it's not the same. The JTF is not the same. The agents aren't the same. We're playing agents. Basically, we're not second wave agents anymore. We're third, fourth, or fifth wave agents. I don't know which one it is, but the agents are different from different areas, and the tactics are going to be far more advanced in accessing the skills in Washington, D.C. than they were in New York. Personally, it's hard to really know if that's true, but one would think that since you're from a government agency in D.C., time having passed, you're running out of supplies, you're running out of stuff, and just some intricacies of that being summer are some considerations that go into it as to why things are different. Things are kind of less than damaging than it was in New York City, where you could take out a squad of Reds with a Seeker mine. So there's that, kind of thing. So they're not really focused, we can't have more advanced tech because there's nobody making more advanced tech. So now with those things in mind, is this going to be a game that you're going to want to play? Well, I bought 2 copies of it. That's me personally. So it's a yes from me, dog. Interesting enough, I bought a copy on PC just so I could take the pictures. As a professional photographer, I love taking pictures, and I think my time in Washington DC is going to be spent taking a lot of snaps and making cinematics. And I might even make a YouTube channel dedicated to just some in-game cinematics people can use for their videos. So stay tuned for that. We might have some of that later, and I'll show you some of the cinematics as I go over this next part. Now, the Division 2 offers new and returning players something more than the original Division. It offers returning players a familiarity that's nice, with some small tweaks to making things feel new. For new players, it's going to be a completely fresh experience, even if you played the Division 1 and hated it. This is a different game, and the level 1 through 30 is going to be fairly unfocused. That's not the part that they want to focus on. Where Division 1, it was the part that shined. And that's just going to be the beginning of it. That's just going to be the standard, with the real game starting at level 30. I'm really looking forward to the amount of content that's been promised by Massive after the end game stuff, and everything that comes out after that is going to be all end game promotion and stuff like that. The folks at Massive did a fantastic job, and I'm sure that up until launch they'll be working hard to make sure that all of those who have played it on the 15th are going to get the best experience possible, while those of us that suffer through beta testing from the 12th to the 15th are going to have to deal with some minor things. It does concern me. The one thing I will talk about, that it does concern me, that Massive tried to hide much of the end game from us in terms of PvP, and a lot of people, even a lot of people I heard of, were turned off by the PvP. They don't like the PvP. And I actually enjoyed the PvP. It's a little bit more of a shooter as opposed to the way the RPG worked in Division 1. But a lot of people were turned off. But I don't know how the endgame PvP is. And that's one thing that concerns me. It could be total garbage. It could be great. It could be fantastic. We don't know how skill sets are going to work. I know they don't want to spoiler this, but I think PvP should have been relegated to the endgame experience, since most people aren't going to spend much time in the level 8, level 7 PvP area. That's just the way it is, and that feels kind of deceptive to me. And history will remember, and so there was some things previously, so I don't want to go ahead and judge a book by its cover right now until I actually am able to open up the book and look inside. So that's really going to wrap it up for us. If you haven't considered buying the Division 2 yet, I would say go ahead and do so, or just rent it from Gamefly or whatever your renting preference is. Go down to the last Blockbuster in the world in Portland, Oregon, or wherever that is, and rent it and at least see what it is. But even if you're not going for the long term, it will still be more fun than many of the other offerings on the table right now, many of the other games that come out. I like Anthem. There's a lot of really good games out right now, but I think that for your money, the Division 2 is going to be the best. Even if you just play that 1 through 30 and you get to the end and you don't like it. I have a lot of friends playing Destiny right now. There's a lot of games out right now that people are enjoying, people are playing, but I think that this is the one that's going to get your money going. So as always, we'll be bringing you more Division 2 content, hooking you up with the latest Division. We have some loot for you that we're going to give away here in the future. I actually have 2 Division 2 backpacks that are coming in the mail, compliments of overseas somewhere. I actually have we'll be giving those away to subscribers. So subscribe and hit that notification so you don't miss the video from us. Like and subscribe and hit the notification, like the video, leave a comment down below and let us know what you're looking forward to in the Division 2. And for all of us here at the pause screen, I am Mounty Carl. Unpause.